Mega Evolution is the most beloved generational mechanic in the series. Mega Forms are available to specific Pokemon, and you can only Mega Evolve once per game. To do so, you need to hold a special Mega Stone, but that cost is well worth it. Mega Forms are extremely powerful, with significant stat increases, and sometimes all new abilities or types upon transforming. In competitive play, the power level of these Mega Forms actually varies quite a bit. Some are very underwhelming, rarely ever used, and relegated to lower tiers. Some are central and metagame defining Pokemon in OU, and some of these Mega Forms are way too powerful, completely banned from being used in OU and actually commonly used up in Ubers among the game's most powerful legendaries. The Pokemon Muk does not have a Mega Form that we know of, but Gen 10 is on the way, and I hope they take the time to right this wrong, if given the chance. Let's take a look at every single Mega Form in the series and rank them all from worst to best. Subscribe to the channel so that we can authorize a diplomatic meeting between Makago and the newly elected President Primeape. Thank you. At the very bottom of the list is Mega Ordino, the worst Mega Form in the game. At a glance, it doesn't look too bad. It's got good defensive stats, a good move pool with support options like Wish, Encore, Knockoff, etc. Icarina Carmine set, as pictured here, with a decent-ish base 80 special attack. But Mega Ordino is just not really worth spending your 1 per team Mega Evolution on. It's not really any better than other support fairy types you can use, especially Clefable is a big competitor, and Clefable doesn't require you to Mega Evolve and is just so much better, with Magic Guard and even more options. Mega Ordino is also an example of a Pokemon that loses a good ability when it Mega Evolves. I mean, in its base form, it has Regenerated, one of the greatest abilities in Pokemon history, with a fantastic 1/3 HP restoration effect every time you switch out. When you evolve to Mega Ordino, you gain significant bulk, but you lose Regenerator, so in that sense, you're significantly worse, actually. And even in the formats where Mega Ordino is used, it often delays its Mega Evolution for quite a while just to maintain Regenerator and get value out of it before it needs to Mega Evolve for the bulk. Normal Fairy is a pretty good type combo though. If this was on another Pokemon with similar traits that didn't involve a Mega Stone, it would probably be quite good. You lose your resistance to fighting, but you gain a Ghost immunity, which is probably way better. And in fact, Mega Ordino is pretty common in hacked Pokemon because of this typing. It's immune to Moongeist Beam, and it has all the advantages of Fairy type on top of that, but yeah, probably the least successful and least desirable Mega Form competitively. Up next, Mega Glalie is one of the worst Mega Forms in the game. A simple mono Ice type Pokemon with the ability Refrigerate. Refrigerate converts normal type attacks into Ice type attacks and amplifies their damage. Pretty cool ability, and with these stats, it actually has the potential to pose quite a bit of a threat. 120 attack, special attack, and base 100 speed, so you get like a pretty massively powerful Ice type double edge. You can use Ice type Explosion, and you can set spikes on the field too. Pretty interesting option as an aggro hazard setting lead. It has Earthquake for coverage too, which is quite good. The issue though is that you're a mono Ice type, you have no protection against hazards, you got so many defensive issues, and to be honest, the stats are not great for a Mega Form. Most Mega Forms have really high stats, much higher than the average Pokemon, kind of to offset the cost of having a dedicated item slot. Mega Glalie doesn't feel that worth it for a 1 per team Mega with these stats. There are just more powerful Mega Forms to choose. It's got a real uphill battle. It's not that fast for modern standards, and it just isn't very good. It's pretty interesting and cool though, but not very good competitively. Up next is a regrettable one. It is Mega Camerupt. Mega Camerupt is extremely epic. I love the way it looks. I love the way it plays. Base form Camerupt is one of my favorite Pokemon. I think they did a great job with the Mega, but it's unfortunately one of the lesser Megas. Its ability when it Mega evolves is Sheer Force, which is a fantastic offensive ability that removes the secondary effects of attacks in exchange for 1.3 times damage. So Fire Blast here cannot burn, but it does way more damage. That's a small price to pay for such a great benefit. You get bonus damage on Fire Blast, Earth Power, and various moves really. You get access to Stealth Rock. This set uses Toxic here for RU, and your stats are pretty impressive. In particular, base 145 special attack is excellent, but I think that you can pretty clearly see the problem. Only base 20 speed is extremely rough. Mega Camerupt needs support from like Trick Room or Paralysis to function probably, or just needs to be bulky enough to take hits. And that's a lot to ask for a offensive Pokemon, and it doesn't help that the typing is so vulnerable to the entire world, really. Times 4 weak to water, weak to ground. That is incredibly rough, and as a result, Mega Camerupt has difficulty functioning in competitive play, and it's a shame. It's a true shame. Up next, Mega Banette, another unfortunate one, because this guy is really cool. They did a good job making Banette look more powerful and more sinister, I think. When Mega Banette Mega evolves, it gains the ability Prankster, which is really good. And Insomnia is a nice one to have in your pre-form, granting sleep immunity. So you have an entry point on sleep moves, and then you can Mega Evolve and do stuff. And pretty unimpressive stats for a Mega form, to be honest, except for the massive base attack stat of 165, which is very good. Banette has Shadow Claw to take advantage of that attack stat, Shadow Sneak as well, but it's just an awkward Pokemon with terrible defenses, low speed. It does have the priority option, but it doesn't hit that hard because of just the low power of its moves. Its options are limited. It almost feels like you might as well run a choice band Pokemon or something where you're probably just clicking one attack on this anyway. It's got Prankster, which you can use with Will-O-Wisp and some other options, but it doesn't have much to take advantage of this ability Prankster. It almost wishes this was something offensive to enhance its damage, probably. It's a sort of a weird Pokemon design all around that doesn't really excel in any particular area, I think. Suffering from a limited move pool, an ability that isn't a fantastic fit, and just an awkward existence. Up next is Mega Abomasnow, which is a Mega Evolution in the genre of what if it had more stats? This has the exact same typing as base form Abomasnow, exact same ability, Snow Warning, but it has more stats at the cost of holding the Mega Stone. It's pretty good as like a mixed attacker. It does have very good offensive stats in both areas, solid defenses. Snow has its uses, but if you're gonna spend your 1 per team Mega Stone slot on something, this is not a very alluring choice with its terrible defensive typing of Grass Ice, which is weak to so many things, fighting, steel, fire, rock, which is terrible, and your times 4 weak to fire. So many weaknesses on something so slow, so it's really tough to actually use this to pose much of a threat when so much threatens it. You at least have Ice Shard for priority, but that's limited. Mega Abomasnow also has the benefit of using Soundproof in its base form, so you can delay when Hail activates, which is perhaps useful, but not that useful. It should be pretty clear to see why this is not the best Mega form in the world, folks. And I also lack respect for this Mega form. I don't think it's very interesting. It is Abomasnow, but bigger. It kind of looks weird too. I feel like base Abomasnow has a more elegant design that I have more respect for. This is a strange entity that is beyond my understanding. Up next is Mega Ampharos. This is another great visual design in my opinion. They gave Ampharos a beautiful mane, makes it look very majestic, very powerful, and special. It's got a dragon typing too, which I think is really cool. It becomes a dragon. I don't know if this really looks like a dragon, but it evokes something dragon-like. Mega Ampharos gets the ability Mold Breaker, a great ability that ignores enemy abilities, and it also gains a massive special attack stat of 165 and improved stats across the board. But Mega Ampharos suffers from the same problem a lot of these ones so far have suffered from. Just that low speed makes it pretty tough to actually pose much of a threat. Also got a pretty limited move pool. I mean, T-Bolt and HP Ice can get you a long way. Don't get me wrong. But Focus Blast is probably your next best thing that you have. What else do you even have on this? You got a Dragon Pulse for stab, Power Gem for some rock coverage. Not a lot. You got Volt Switch to pivot, but you're pretty limited in your offensive options. Heal Bell is pretty good utility, but you don't have good healing moves. You don't have great prospects because you're so slow, and there's so many other faster electric type special attackers that are more effective than this and don't even require a Mega Stone to do so. And that is unfortunate for Mega Ampharos. Mold Breaker might have its uses though, to ignore abilities. But even that is not that useful. You would probably rather something that helps you out in the speed department, whatever that may be. If this had like Quick Feet, that'd be interesting maybe. But it doesn't. It doesn't have much going for it. Up next is Mega Steelix, another visually cool one. It's big Steelix with metal debris floating around it, orbiting like a planet. Quite a intimidating visual. Mega Steelix is another one that's pretty much just the same Pokemon with more stats, though. It does have the ability Sand Force, but that's kind of a weird ability. Extra damage on ground and steel type attacks, and rock type attacks in the sand. An interesting choice on what's supposed to be a defensive Pokemon. But the defense stat is through the roof. Base 230 defense, much better special defense, actually quite a high attack stat, so it can be more of a bulky attacker with the sand synergy. Steel ground typing as well. But once again, difficult to justify using the Mega Stone on this when you've got like Excadrill as a similar Pokemon with higher speed, same utility of Stealth Rock, and it's not as if you're that fantastic as a defensive wall. Your health is going to be limited because you've got no healing moves, you've got more weaknesses than other good defensive walls that can stick around longer. Steel ground typing. Doesn't feel like a great fit on this, and if you're trying to be a bulky attacker, I mean, you're pretty slow. Once again, the speed is a big detriment. So this is another Mega design that is a little bit ineffective competitively. Up next, Mega Houndoom. Houndoom is looking much larger and more imposing, and more demon-like. I'm a little bit frightened. Mega Houndoom has the same Dark Fire typing. Enhanced stats, of course. Impressive stats, base 140 special attack, 115 speed. But it loses its good ability Flash Fire, which is a great ability, granting immunity to fire-type moves and bonus damage to your fire-type moves if hit by one. Instead, you get Solar Power, which grants 1.5x damage in the sun at the cost of dealing recoil damage to you every single turn in the sun. So Mega Houndoom can potentially be used on sun teams as a powerful wall breaker. That's a lot of residual damage though, especially when you're considering Stealth Rock. Mega Houndoom is not going to have that many turns to pose a threat. It is reasonably fast though. This can actually do a bit of wall breaking, and you can actually just use it as a powerful offensive threat without having to use the sun synergy. It's good enough on its own, especially if you achieved a Flash Fire boost on the way in. I think this actually sees occasional use in like Gen 6 OU as a matter of fact, but it does have a big uphill battle fighting for existence in competitive singles, and often all of the drawbacks are not worth it. Up next is Mega Absol, which has pretty enhanced stats in its Mega form. 150 attack, a respectable 115 special attack, and speed. So it's pretty fast, pretty threatening, and it even gains the ability Magic Bounce, which is fantastic, bouncing back various status moves to the enemy, and bouncing back hazards, so you can use Mega Absol to block hazard setters, switch in against status moves being clicked. Actually allows for pretty good entry points. Mega Absol, though, is extremely frail. Terrible defenses, and that is quite exploitable. It is fast enough to pose a threat, though. It's got Stab Knockoff. Superpower is pretty good coverage. And Magic Bounce also gives it some stuff to do. So this is relatively functional Pokemon, I think. Not terrible, not too bad. Up next is Mega Sharpedo, and this one actually has kind of a coherent design. In its base form, it has Speed Boost. You gain 1 stage of speed at the end of each turn, so you can bring it in, Protect to gain some speed, and then Mega Evolve and gain Strong Jaw, which grants 1.5x damage to biting based moves. So the base form ability and the Mega form ability are working together for a sweep. Once you get that speed that you need, you can go to the moon with your powerful biting based attack, especially Crunch, which is extremely hard hitting off the back of 140 base attack. You even have a respectable special attack if you want to run mixed coverage. Pretty good Pokemon actually. You could maybe use this in OU as a late game cleaner. It works, but the problem with it, first and foremost, is its frailty. It's hard to actually get this on the field and get the ball rolling with it. And you can only do the speed boost thing once. Once you commit to being Mega Sharpedo, you can never get the speed boost again, because you lose that ability and you have Strong Jaw permanently. There's a bit of inflexibility there, but it's not too bad. You're sort of setting up for it in the late game, probably, is going to be your game plan. This frailty also makes you susceptible to like priority moves, and extreme speed will give you a lot of problems. But it's not a bad one. It's ranked in UU where it's pretty good, and you could probably use it in OU if you wanted to, I think. Up next, Mega Blastoise, the worst of the Mega Trio from Kanto. Way worse than Mega Venusaur and Charizard, but still okay. I mean, mono water typing with good stats, you can't really go too wrong with that, and that's what puts Mega Blastoise higher than many of these other ones. Its ability in its Mega form is Mega Launcher, which grants a bonus to pulse-based moves like Dark Pulse and Water Pulse. Pretty good. Mega Blastoise also has Rapid Spin, which is useful support, so if you're going to use a Mega form in the lower tiers, this is actually a pretty good choice. As a pretty bulky mono water type that not only poses a big threat with its high special attack, it can get rid of hazards, it can spread a burn, it's got good coverage. It's a solid Mega form. Compared to those below it, at least. It's not really ever seen in OU, but it's not completely terrible either. Up next, Mega Beedrill is actually a pretty good Pokemon. with a very simple idea behind it. What if Beedrill was min-maxed to the maximum possible extent? It has 150 base attack, 145 base speed, and they've subtracted the stats from everywhere else to funnel them into the 2 stats that matter. It has the same bug poison typing, but the ability adaptability, which grants bonus stab damage, which is very good on stab U-turn. Mega Beedrill has some problems though. It's got rock weakness, which always sucks. It's terrible against Landorus Therian, especially if they have a rocky helmet. Not only are you falling to the rock damage, you're getting chipped down by the rocky helmet every single time. You can knock them off, but that's a temporary reprieve against a permanent problem. And Mega Beedrill also suffers against like steel types. You can't really do much damage to them. You got Drill Run, I think, as coverage. It's alright to hit steels. But yeah, Mega Beedrill is a bit tough when it comes to OU viability. But in the lower tiers, it's very effective, very threatening, very powerful, speedy physical attacker and late game cleaner. It has this move, Fell Stinger, which you can use sometimes to get an attack raise if you KO. It's a weak move, but it gives you this, gives the attack. If you've got your enemy chipped enough to put them in range of that, that's pretty fun. It's potentially cool. I like Mega Beedrill because they gave Beedrill something to do. Unfortunately, it's not that successful, but it's much better than Beedrill was before. It's significantly better, so that's something to acknowledge. Up next is Mega Aggron, and this one's actually pretty good. When it Mega Evolves, it loses its Rock type and becomes a Mono Steel type, which is much better. And it gains the ability Filter, which is also much better. You take 3/4 of the damage you would take from super effective attacks, which is very good. You can tank like Stray Earthquakes, Fire Punch, or weak super effective hits like that. And Mega Aggron also gains significant stats, massive 140 attack, 230 base defense. It's kind of like a better version of Mega Steelix that makes more sense with the typing being improved, the ability that is synergistic, access to Stealth Rock for some utility, Heavy Slam, which hits super hard because of you're so heavy and you have such stab damage and attack stats. You got Earthquake and stuff. This can actually check some relevant stuff in Gen 6 and 7 OU. In Gen 6, you're good against like Mega Altaria, Mega Metagross. In Gen 7, you're pretty good against Mega Mawile with this, which is pretty valuable. Doesn't have much in the way of longevity, but it can be a temporary check to those things and an effective one. And it has some value in its base form too, as Sturdy, can be used to live a hit and strike back or get rocks on the field or click Roar or something. So that adds some flexibility that I think is cool. One of the better Mega designs in my opinion. I like Mega Aggron. It's UU. It's not like gonna be used on every team in OU or anything, but it's OU viable occasionally. And I respect the Pokemon like Mega Aggron. I think it's pretty fun. Up next, Mega Aerodactyl. What if it was spikier and it had more stats and dealt more damage? That's the design ethos behind Mega Aerodactyl. Has the same rock flying typing, but it's got the ability Tough Claws for bonus physical damage. It's got higher speed and attack, and it's quite a threat. This is a very fast, very powerful Pokemon that can really eat you alive with its stab stone edge. It does of course suffer from rock weakness though. Its best flying type attack is Aerial Ace. It does hit pretty hard thanks to its high attack and Tough Claws, but Mega Aerodactyl does suffer from its poor coverage options as well that aren't very hard hitting. It's got Fire Fang, I think it also has Ice Fang, but gonna be easily worn down by rocks, which is not good. But this is a very effective late game cleaner that can potentially be built around in OU, maybe. You know, you chip things down enough, Mega Aerodactyl is probably the scariest thing you could possibly see. Outrunning everything and easily wiping the floor with whatever's left. But it is a hard sell to spend your Mega Stone on something that is so vulnerable, frail. It's also weak to Scizor, which is rough. You're vulnerable to the Bullet Punch. That's never good. Ice Shard too. 2 common priority moves affect Mega Aerodactyl, so that's not fun. Up next is Mega Sceptile, who I think is a pretty cool one. Becomes much larger in the Mega form with a big tail. He's standing the other way around, which is certainly very menacing. And he gains the ability Lightning Rod. That's not that useful, to be honest. You already ×4 resist electric, but it might come up occasionally. The electric immunity. It denies Volt Switch at least. More importantly, it gets excellent stats. 145 special attack and speed. Even 110 attack, allowing you to run some mixed options. And Mega Sceptile is semi-functional in Gen 6 OU. It's pretty good against some stuff in the meta like Mega Charizard X. You hit them with the Stab Dragon Pulse, you're faster. You can hit a lot of the bulky water types common in Gen 6, like Slowbro. There's also Manaphy. Earthquake hits Heatran. HP Fire hits Ferrothorn, Mega Scizor, and stuff. Mega Sceptile does suffer from frailty and vulnerability to certain priority moves, especially Ice Shard. Ice Shard will give Mega Sceptile big problems. But I think it's a pretty good Pokemon. Another thing you can hit is Rotom Wash. Also, Rotom Wash, very threatened by Mega Sceptile. I think it's pretty decent. Not the easiest thing to fit on teams, but not impossible to use in OU either. And down in UU, it's very good, of course. Pretty fundamentally solid. I mean, just fast, hard-hitting, good options. Earthquake for mixed coverage, I quite like. Mega Sceptile, decent. Up next, Mega Pidgeot. A significant improvement over the base form Pidgeot. Its stats don't look that impressive for a Mega. 135 special attack. 121 speed is quite good, but the rest is average. But what's really great about Mega Pidgeot is the ability No Guard. No Guard means that your moves cannot miss at all, and that's fantastic with Hurricane, which is a really strong, hard-hitting attack that is inaccurate. But with No Guard, it's perfectly accurate, and so is Heat Wave. You have access to U-Turn, you got Roost for healing. Not bad. I mean, Stab Hurricane, always lovely when it's accurate, and for Mega Pidgeot, it's always accurate. But Mega Pidgeot does suffer from Rock Weakness, Frailty, and those rather low stats. But it's got the UUBL rating in Gen 6, which I think is respectable. No Guard is doing a lot of heavy lifting here and making this a pretty decent Pokemon. But I just wish it had a bit... Maybe the stats could have been better on Mega Pidgeot. It would have been fun if this was a little bit more powerful, I think. Up next, Mega Gallade. What if it had more stats? That's the question answered by this very Pokemon. It's a very interesting question. With an answer of, it would be pretty good. 165 attack, 110 speed. I mean, that's pretty much all there is to it. Mega Gallade's ability is inner focus when it Mega Evolves. Not very exciting. Immunity to flinch. But the extra stats are pretty great. It's got high special defense too. Respectable defense. So it's not the frailest, worst thing in the world at taking hits. It's got the great close combat stab option. It's got knockoff for coverage, Zen Headbutt stab on it, Swords Dance as well, which you do have the breathing room to set up with such special defense on you. So Mega Gallade is decent. UUBL ranked in Gen 7. Not that interesting though, it's just Gallade with more stats to be honest, but it is a functional Pokemon compared to some of these other ones. Up next, Mega Latios. You're not going to believe this. You are not going to believe this. It is the same Pokemon with higher stats. It even has the same ability, Levitate, the same typing, and the stats are enhanced. The stats are very impressive. They are excellent. And as a result, the Pokemon has some fundamental strengths, doesn't it? Latios with more stats, that sounds like a recipe for success, but does suffer from the rise of fairy types in the metagame. Not great into like Clefable, Magearna, especially in Gen 7, and has a rough time against various steel types like Ferrothorn, Mega Scizor. You can run HP Fire for those, but you can't fit everything. You know, you want Psychic, Earthquake, Ice Beam, Roost. You probably want all these. You can run HP Fire, but to what end? So Dragon Psychic doesn't feel great, especially in Gen 7. But just has a lot of fundamental strengths that carry it forth to success. Up next is Mega Manectric, another one of my favorites. I love the Lightning Bolt design. I think it's a Pokemon that deserved a bit of an enhancement. Manectric didn't do much in its base form, but Mega Manectric is quite good. The stats at a glance don't look that impressive. 135 special attack and speed. Unimpressive bulk. But you've got the ability Intimidate, which is very good, basically enhancing your bulk indirectly, as it lowers their attack upon your Mega Evolution. And your ability pre-evolution is also useful, Lightning Rod. So you can come in, take a hit, get the extra special attack, and then Mega Evolve and Intimidate. So a lot of value possibly gained from Mega Evolution. On top of that, I think that it's just a fundamentally solid fast electric type, with Hidden Power Ice for coverage, and honestly, pretty useful coverage of Flamethrower and even Overheat if you want to hit harder. This is a Pokemon that works pretty well in Gen 6 OU. Unfortunately in Gen 7 you're definitely dethroned by Tapu Koko, who is easy to fit, doesn't require the Mega Stone, but in Gen 6 OU this is a good Pokemon. And it's a fun Pokemon, I like it. I think it's good. Up next is Mega Gardevoir, a solid Pokemon in the Gen 6 OU metagame with the Psychic Fairy typing, the ability Pixelate, which converts normal type attacks into Fairy type attacks and gives them a damage bonus. And a good amount of stats. 165 special attack is great, base 100 speed is workable, Unlike a lot of these other wall breaker type Mega evolutions, this one has some real bulk, the typing that can withstand hits, the stats that can withstand hits. So this is a great wall breaker. Even has Will-O-Wisp, which is a good catch-all click on switch-ins. That stab hyper voice is great, and it goes through substitute, which is useful. And Psyshock and Focus Blast are good coverage. Unfortunately in Gen 7, Mega Gardevoir gets very much outclassed by Tapu Lele, who has the same exact typing and is just far better with no Mega Stone required, a Psychic Terrain, which is so useful for your team, and is just Mega Gardevoir but better. So that's unfortunate, but in Gen 6 this is a good Pokemon and fundamentally pretty damn strong. Up next, Mega Garchomp, and this is a rare instance of a Mega form that's considered worse than its base form. That doesn't happen too often. Maybe Latios, because you lose the item slot. Sometimes the item slot is worth more than the extra stats or whatever other traits you get from Mega Evolving, and that's definitely the case here. Mega Garchomp on the surface does seem like a pretty significant upgrade, gaining a massive 170 base attack stat, enhanced stats in other areas too, but a stat decrease to speed is significant. One of Garchomp's greatest traits is that it's just above 100 base speed. That's really significant. It lets you outrun a lot of important stuff. But to be slower than Garchomp in the Mega form is rough. It's not desirable, despite how much more attack you get. And also, losing the item slot is significant here, because Garchomp uses the item slot on, like, Focus Sash for that crucial free turn, Yachi Berry to survive an ice type attack, Choice Scarf for the extra speed, Life Orb for more damage on mixed sets. It uses items all the time. Also, you gain the ability Sand Force after Mega Evolving, which is bonus damage to ground, steel, and rock moves in the sand. Not that good. In fact, Rough Skin, Garchomp's default ability, is much better and more broadly useful, allowing you to deal damage on contact. That being said, Mega Garchomp still OU ranked by technicality in Gen 6 and 7, and has its uses on like Sticky Web offense teams or something where you can wall break with the high attack, and I think it has a higher special attack stat too, so Fire Blast hits pretty hard. Generally, you just prefer base form Garchomp though, not only because this has taken away your 1 per team Mega Stone, but base form Garchomp just has a lot of advantages over this. But, you know, even a slightly inferior alternate Garchomp is still powerful, of course, so it's got a respectable position here, but definitely has an uphill battle in terms of wanting to be used by competitive players who could just use base form Garchomp that is right there for the picking. Mega Altaria is up next. Although it's ranked UUBL in Gen 6, that's a bit deceptive. I think that this Pokemon's actually quite good and well respected in the modern Gen 6 OU metagame. This is a Dragon Fairy type Pokemon. It actually changes its type combo when it Mega Evolves. We love that. It has the ability Pixelate, which is great, and more of an offensive-leaning variant of Altaria, although its stats are very evenly distributed with just 110 in attack, defense, and special attack. The stats are not very impressive for Omega, but the typing is great. Dragon Fairy is very complementary. The Dragon's weak to itself, Dragon, but Fairy is immune to Dragon, so you cancel out that. And Fairy Ground is a nice coverage combo here with the Stab Return transforming into a Fairy type move. You got Roost. I think this Pokemon just feels really solid to use and is quite effective. Not so much in Gen 7 though. A little bit harder to keep up in Gen 7, but in Gen 6 this is a solid and relevant presence in the format, with a lot going for it. Up next, Mega Pinsir. Same typing as the base form, but with a way better ability, Aerialate, which converts normal type attacks into flying type attacks and increases their damage as well. So you get the incredibly hard-hitting flying type return, which is so strong, and quick attack for priority. It's even better than base 40 power as well because of the damage boost, so it's rare to see a flying type priority move like that, but it has one. And you got close combat for coverage as well. I think you also get like Earthquake, if you do. Good physical move pull on Mega Pinsir, and the stats to back it up with good enough speed to wall break, high attack, even a pretty solid defense stat, and okay enough special defense, I guess. The biggest problem with the Mega Pinsir though is that damning bug flying typing, which is so rough. You have such an uphill battle to exist whatsoever in competitive singles with that ×4 rock weakness, which cuts half of your HP for simply entering the field. In Gen 6 it's ranked OU. It makes up for the damning weakness with all of its fantastic upside elsewhere, but not so much in Gen 7. Maybe because Megaena is there and maybe more. Like the Ash Greninja Water Shurikens can get you, and a lot of stuff just threatens you more. Perhaps you got like Kartana is big competition for a wall breaker as well in that metagame. But Mega Pinsir it's viable enough in Gen 7 considering, and it's a pretty damn scary and powerful Mega Evolution. Never really thought about the visual, it's kind of all over the place. It looks freaky. I'm a little bit frightened by that. Up next is Mega Swampert. Same typing as base Swampert, but of course it gains Swift Swim upon Mega Evolving and becomes a offensive behemoth, perhaps the most powerful Swift Swimmer we have ever seen. With base 150 attack, incredible bulk as well. Double speed in the rain is so powerful. It's got a Waterfall, Earthquake, Ice Punch for coverage to hit grass types and such. And Power Up Punch to increase its attack. It even has like Stealth Rock. You got Substitute as well. Incredible rain Pokemon. In Gen 6 this guy's ranked UU probably just because there's not a great rain setter in the metagame. I mean, there's Politoed, but Politoed is not the best in Gen 6. But in Gen 7 this guy is incredibly powerful on rain teams with Pelipper existing now, as Pelipper is a new drizzle setter, new rain setter. It's hard to evaluate this. It's not the best in Gen 6, but it's great in Gen 7. I think it's just whether or not there's a good rain setter in the metagame that determines whether this is good or not, and I think that you would give this some respect for being very inherently powerful and kind of enabling rain to exist as an archetype. Visual design though is kind of hideous. I mean, regular Swampert is a wonderful, iconic, and classic Pokemon. This is kind of like, what if Swampert was Big Muscle Man? I don't know how I feel about it. I don't think it's very fun. Don't think it's very morally sound, but that's not for me to decide, I suppose. And we must move on with our lives. Up next, Mega Heracross. This one's quite different from its base form. With the stats switched around, I believe it's slower, way higher attack, impressive bulk, and the ability Skill Link, which causes multi-hit moves to hit the maximum number of times every time. It's a great offensive ability, and with such high attack and the power of this ability, you can really make stuff happen with Mega Heracross. You got the fantastic stab option of Pin Missile. Rock Blast is great coverage, as is Bullet Seed, which you can use alongside Tapu Bulu for grassy terrain damage. That's a good combo. I like that one. Close Combat just hits hard with Stab. It's a really awesome wall breaker that I think is quite fun to use. In Gen 6 and 7, this is a great wall breaker with a lot of merit to it, and I think it's quite a good Mega form. Up next is Mega Gyarados, and this is my personal favorite Mega form in the game. I love its in-game design. I think it's awesome because the base form and Mega form are so different and so synergistic, and also the whole concept of the Pokemon feels like it's coherently designed and it works well together. Everything fits together like a puzzle. The Gyarados in its base form is of course Water Flying type. It has Intimidate and Moxie as its ability choices. But when it Mega Evolves, it becomes a Water Dark type Pokemon, gaining new immunities, no longer weak to rock, but immune to psychic. So there's a bit of a mind game of when you choose to Mega Evolve with this Pokemon, whether you even have a Mega Stone in the first place, because base form Gyarados can also be used with Z moves or other things. So that's what's interesting about Mega Gyarados, is that you can bluff not being Mega or being Mega or whatever else, because both forms are viable and there's a decision to be made on when to Mega Evolve and gain that new typing or preserve your old typing. When you do Mega Evolve, you gain the ability Mold Breaker, which ignores enemy abilities. This allows, for example, Earthquake to hit levitating Pokemon like Rotom Wash. It allows you to ignore Unaware. Unaware is an ability that ignores boosts from the enemy, but you can ignore their unawareness and you're doubly unaware of what they're doing with your Mold Breakage. There's other applications for this. You can taunt Magic Bounce Pokemon with Taunt. That's very fun. And it's a pretty effective wall breaker and late game sweeper. The stats are also great. High attack, high bulk, good enough speed post Dragon Dance to hit everything, and I just love it. I love it. It's better in Gen 7, hits more stuff that's relevant in the metagame, and works in tandem with base form Gyarados because both are more viable. But fortunately in Gen 6 it's UUBL. I think it's pretty good, but not the most commonly seen Mega. Up next is Mega Venusaur. I like this one. When it Mega Evolves, it gets Thick Fat, which is a great defensive ability, basically granting a resistance to Fire and Ice type, which Venusaur is weak to, so it cancels those out effectively. Really makes Venusaur's defensive typing significantly better, and your stats are very well rounded, especially defense and special defense. And this can be a pretty nice bulky Pokemon, a good defensive Pokemon. You got Synthesis for a form of healing. Not the best healing move, only 8 PP on it, but having any form of healing move at all is good here. Leech Seed, nice progress making. HP Fire to hit Ferrothorn, Sludge Bomb. Deals good damage with your special attack, spreads poison. Venusaur Mega is a solid, sort of offensive bulky Pokemon, and a worthy candidate for the 1 per team Mega Stone. Even though it's pretty unexciting looking in terms of its stats, it just has a pretty well-rounded and functional design that works well. Visually, it's, you know, the flower atop Venusaur's body has blossomed beyond what was thought possible. I suppose that's an acceptable way to go with such a design, and it looks pretty cool and fun, and I would say it's decent. Up next is Mega Slowbro. This is an interesting one because this is a Mega that you actually don't Mega Evolve for quite a lot of the time. Mega Slowbro gains the ability Shell Armor when it Mega Evolves, which grants an immunity to crits. Not the best ability in the world, and it's significantly worse than Regenerator, which is outstanding. But what's nice about Mega Slowbro holding the Mega Stone is that Mega Stones can't be knocked off. And if something can't be knocked off, then the move knockoff deals way less damage. So thanks to the Slowbro Knight, Mega Slowbro's psychic typing is less of a detriment. And you can just stay in base form, take advantage of Regenerator a lot, get some Scald Burns going, and if you need to, you can Mega Evolve for the significant enhancement in bulk, especially that massive 180 base defense. And Shell Armor can have its uses in 1v1 scenarios if you're up against an enemy who's also Calm Minding or boosting their stats. You can't be crit by them. That comes up sometimes, perhaps. So pretty good Mega Form Mega Slowbro with the absurd bulk. This actually has some usage in Ubers too to survive, like Primal Groudon and Mega Salamence, Mega Zygarde, not Mega Zygarde, Complete Zygarde, and other such threats, thanks to the absurd bulk. Not much in the game is this defensively bulky, it's pretty crazy. Not the easiest thing to fit on teams, not the greatest use of the 1 per team Mega Stone in OU, but definitely has its place, and it's definitely quite good. And it's interesting how the base form works in tandem with the Mega form, in a way. Up next, Mega Tyranitar. This one, I think it's a travesty. I hate this. What if Tyranitar had more spikes and had more stats? That's what they came up with? That's the best they could do? Same typing, same ability, more stats. How interesting, how intriguing. And it clicks Dragon Dance and moves. It's a bit better than regular Tyranitar at being a Dragon Dance sweeper because of its highest. It's pretty good in Gen 6 and 7 OU, but it doesn't have my respect. They could have done better here. Alternate Tyranitars in Pokemon have been unsuccessful so far, in my opinion. We've got this and Iron Thorns, both of which do not hold a candle to the original and the perfect creation of regular Tyranitar, who is the greatest Pokemon of all time. They will never be able to replicate perfection. Up next is Mega Charizard Y. Charizard gets to have 2 Mega Forms, imagine that. This one maintains the default Fire Flying typing, and it has a specially leaning stat distribution. Same base speed stat of 100, but much higher special attack, much higher special defense too. And the ability Drought, this is the real kicker. Drought, of course, creating Sunny Day on the field, which is so powerful alongside your stab fire type attacks and your high special attack. And also, you get Solar Beam, which works instantly when you make the sun. How wonderful. You got Focus Blast that can hit Heatran coming in. If you want to be more accurate, you can run Earthquake for physical mixed coverage that hits Heatran. The Focus Blast hits other stuff like Dark types. And you got Roost for some healing. You, of course, do suffer from Rock Weakness. That's your biggest drawback. You suffer also from the item slot requirement. So Drought is good, but it's not the best if you're running a Sun team, because you don't have the Heat Rock to extend the duration of Sun. So Sun is only 5 turns. It's not that long. It benefits the Charizard itself. You get a lot out of the Sun. 5 turns is plenty for you, but for your teammates, it is not fantastic, but it would be pretty broken if you could put Heat Rock on this, of course. That would be pretty powerful. We can be thankful that that's not the reality we live in. Of all the ×4 Rock Week Mega Evolutions, this one's probably the most worth using, because it's so outstanding in other areas with its incredible wall-breaking potential and great coverage combo of just really hard-hitting fire and grass type attacks working together. And the one thing that can stop it is smacked in the face by Focus Blast. This is a damn scary Pokemon, a great wall breaker, and I enjoy using it as well. Visual design, I don't know, it's kind of just looks a lot like Charizard, but his head is a bit spikier. That's not all Megas achieve the same level of care Some are completely different beings, some are just what if it had spikes. I kind of like the look of it though. It's more dragon-like, despite the fact that it's not even a dragon type, but it's more dragon-like than regular Charizard. Looks like it comes from old Valyria or something. So there you have it. There you have it. Up next is Mega Latios, which is kind of interesting because this is significantly better than Mega Latios. They're pretty much the same Pokemon, but this one has better defensive stats. But the better defensive stats are significantly more impactful, especially this massive 150 special defense. Mega Latios with a utility moveset like this one with Thunder Wave and Roost, you also get Defog, is pretty damn effective. And with Levitate and all your good resistances to electric moves, water moves, etc. Mega Latios does a good job coming in, taking hits, healing up, spreading paralysis, removing hazards as well. And the defensive stat line is just more well suited to that. Although you do suffer from the same problems Mega Latios suffers from, like vulnerability to the fairy types, Mega Latios can actually tank a hit from like a Clefable Moonblast if it needs to, and this kind of utility Pokemon, if you're switching in on a hit and then clicking Defog, you've already done your job and you can get out of this. Mega Latios, on the other hand, wants to pose a threat, and then it's easily answered by things and forced out by them. Mega Latios can do what it wants to do more effectively, and the defensive stat line helps it do that. There's also Calm Mind sets, Calm Mind Stored Power, and with this you can ramp to the point of shrugging off those fairy type attacks and actually 1v1ing something like a Clefable with the stored power, especially because Calm Mind boosts your special defense so much more than it does for Latios, who is more about immediate power. And it helps that you got the Mega Stone, which means you take less damage from knock off. That's always nice, of course. Up next, Mega Scizor, and this is my least favorite Mega Evolution, I gotta say it. It's just the same Pokemon with more stats, but it's the most egregious example because the visual design is just nothing. It's just a bit spikier, it's a bit bigger, or it maybe looks like a robot. Compare it to the regular Scizor design with such elegance, such spheroid shapes, and such iconic visual. Mega Scizor is a cheap copy, but you can't deny how good it is. It's a damn successful Mega form. The stats are great. Through the roof on the defense and attack. The typing is of course Bug Steel, which is excellent. Technician is an amazing ability, and it's a great, like, you can be a pivot with U-turn as well, and you can be a Wind Comb with Swords Dance Bullet Punch. You can defensively answer various things, and in Gen 6 and 7 this is a very commonly seen Mega Evolution and one of the most successful. It's my least favorite as well because I think that this served to remove a bit of item variety from Scizor. Scizor in its base form can be, Scarf Scizor, Okaberry Scizor, Choice Band Scizor, Life Orb, or Leftovers. Item variety on Scizor makes a big difference, but you don't really use base form Scizor ever in Gen 6 and 7. You just use Mega Scizor because it's so much better. It takes away all that variety and replaces it with stats, which is less interesting in my mind. It's less interesting. This is not fun for me. And to this day, I'm offended. To this day, I think they could have done something more. Give Mega Scizor, make him a fire type or something. Dude, go crazy with it. Make him a electric type. Turn him into a robot. Iron Bug. They should make Iron Bug. That would be so much smarter than this. Up next is Mega Medicham, another example of the same Pokemon but with more stats. But I don't mind this one as much. I mean, Medicham itself really fell off in later games, no longer keeping up. I guess it deserved a bit of a boost. If anything's going to get same Pokemon but better, Medicham is a decent candidate for that. And the visual design is also pretty cool. It looks way more... It looks like Medicham ascended or something to another plane of existence. It's got more clothes on. It's got these cool bands coming off it. I like the visual design of it too. And it's a simple Pokemon. It's got pure power just like Medicham does. Double damage. And that can result in a massive damage output with base 100 attack, which gets doubled, including the EVs, IVs, and everything. And you just click moves. You click big Zen Headbutt, big high jump kick, Ice Punch, Fake Out also racks up a lot of damage. And this is just a really effective wall breaker. It's slow-ish, only base 100, but it hits like an absolute truck. Greedy teams will be torn apart by this, and even offensive teams with the huge fake outs, every time this comes in, it's going to just deal such a huge chunk of damage. Anything slower is going to hate their life. It's a very good, simple, and effective Pokemon, a staple of Gen 6 and 7 OU. Up next is Mega Charizard X, the superior of the two Charizards. And this is an interesting one because this Pokemon has the drawback of a terrible base form with that damning times for rock weakness. It's really tough to get this on the field safely because it's taken so much from rocks and it's so frail in its base form. But when it does Mega Evolve, it turns into one of the scariest things of all time that OU has ever seen. It's got it all, this Pokemon. It has fantastic stats, 130 in both attack and special attack, 100 speed, and really good defense too. Solid bulk, access to Roost to heal up. If it takes the rock damage, you can at least heal up. Tough Claws is a big one, just a blanket boost to physical attacks. And then it has Dragon Dance, and it becomes a Fire Dragon type when it Mega Evolves. That's the real kicker. Because this typing offensively is so excellent. You are neutral to Fairy as well, which is massive. You're neutral to Water. Offensively and defensively, this has serious benefit. And then Fire, Dragon, Stab is so powerful. You get Earthquake for coverage. This Pokemon's also immune to being burned, which is a massive deal for such a sweeper. It's kind of like Gouging Fire, original version. This is the original Gouging Fire, but what if Gouging Fire had Tough Claws and way more attack? You're looking at it. It's an excellent Pokemon. And if you're going to use a Mega Stone on your team, this is an incredibly easy one to be sold on. Visual design is looking a bit like a Yu-Gi-Oh card. It's looking a bit insane. They may have gone too far. With the black and blue, it doesn't even look like it's in Pokemon anymore. It looks like something other. Although I bet the 10-year-olds across the globe thought that this was the coolest thing they've ever seen when it finally Mega Evolved before their eyes. Definitely has that childlike wonder to it that we all love. And perhaps that gives it some bonus points. Up next is Mega Lopunny. This might be a little bit high for Mega Lopunny in some people's eyes, but I think this is one of the best Mega forms in the game. An incredibly consistent choice in both Gen 6 and 7 OU. Mega Lopunny is way better than the base. The base form is not even a Pokemon, really. The Mega form is significantly enhanced with a normal fighting typing. And the ability Scrappy, which is an amazing ability. Scrappy means that normal and fighting type attacks will hit ghost types. They are not immune anymore, you can hit them. And that makes normal fighting type attacks so much better. It makes fighting the best offensive type in the game. It was already outstanding, but a high jump kick from Mega Lopunny with the Scrappy. You're not even safe when you go to a ghost type. It's so powerful. And your stats are good enough to take advantage of that. 136 attack, 135 speed. Very, very fast, which makes you incredibly effective. Stats are not the best when it comes to Mega forms. Like some Megas have way higher stats than this, for sure. But Scrappy is just that good. High jump kicks, a massive base power, really makes up for the lower attack stat that you have. And you're so fast that makes up for it too. Ice Punch is really nice to have against Landorus Therian. Stab Frustration also goes crazy. Return or Frustration. And Fake Out for the priority option is also super good. Not only gives you the safe turn to Mega Evolve, but you can hit ghosts with this. You can, whatever's low, you just switch out back in from Mega Lopunny repeatedly and just keep hitting them until they're gone. I would do that all the time. I found this to be the most consistent Mega form when I was really into Gen 7 OU, in my opinion. As just an offensive attacker. So good and so powerful. Up next is Mega Alakazam. This is a crazy Mega form, folks. Mono Psychic, just like the base form, but gains the ability Trace when it Mega Evolves, which copies the enemy's ability. This is my favorite ability in the game. It has so many useful and interesting applications. I love stuff like this. Taking stuff from the enemy is so fun. You can trace Flash Fire, switch it on Heatran and be safe. You can trace Regenerator, heal yourself back up against like a Tornadus. There's many applications. You can trace Soul Heart from Magiana, finish them off, and then get the special attack boost. Or the Beast Boost, same deal against any of the Ultra Beasts. You love to see it. Mega Alakazam went crazy with the stats. I mean, 175 special attack is just beyond anything. 150 speed as well. Respectable special defense. And in Gen 6, this thing was definitely vulnerable to priority because it's so frail defensively. Like a Scissor Bullet Punch or a Sucker Punch from Bishop would get you. But in Gen 7, Tapu Lele released, and Psychic Terrain was perfect for this. Not only because it boosts your damage on Psychic, but also makes you immune to priority. You can't get Sucker Punched, Bullet Punched, Faked Out, or anything. And you outrun just about the entire world. You're even faster than Mega Lopunny. You're faster than just about everything. And you hit him with such massive damage that you can scarcely believe it. One of my favorite interactions is Mega Alakazam can trace Swift Swim from Mega Swampert. Gain the double speed in the rain and then hit them with Energy Ball. Bit of counterplay to rain teams. I love that one. Just an insane Mega form, folks, all around. And one of the best in the game for sure. Up next, Mega Diancie, an amazing Pokemon in both Gen 6 and 7. It's got Magic Bounce, which is always great, bouncing back various advantageous effects, preventing hazards and stuff. Rock Fairy typing is interesting. Rock is not the best for you, introducing a lot of weaknesses into the mix, but you do get Stab, Diamond, Storm, which is great, and Fairy typing is always lovely, but really it's the stats that are just outstanding for this Pokemon. 160 attack and special attack, and you got diverse options to take advantage of both. Great defenses, pretty good speed considering all the rest of your advantages as well. And you're a great hazard setter because they can't set hazards against you. You're probably threatening them and forcing them out. And you could just click Stealth Rock. And that's such value to make a Stealth Rock. And then beyond that, I mean, Stab Moonblast goes crazy on this. Just a fundamentally powerful blob of stats and useful things, and Magic Bounce on it as well. It's no surprise that this is such a successful Mega form in both Gen 6 and 7 OU, I think. Up next, Mega Sableye, famously one of the only defensive Pokemon to ever be banned from OU. Mega Sableye is a crazy Pokemon. This thing, when it Mega Evolves, it has the same typing as base Sableye, Dark Ghost, but it gets Magic Bounce, which is one of the best abilities in all of Pokemon, bouncing back various status and hazard effects back to the enemy. Incredible on a Pokemon like this with such good defensive typing of Dark Ghost and such good defensive stats. I mean, for a Mega form, this is not that impressive, but for a Magic Bounce Pokemon, this is through the roof. If Magic Bounce is like a big offset, you know? If you have Magic Bounce, you probably have way lower stats, like Xatu or something. But Mega Sableye's stats for a Magic Bounce Pokemon are very impressive. This is one of the most frustrating things to fight in the entire franchise, in my opinion, because you just can't nail it down and get rid of the thing. It walls so many things, it spreads burn, it has recover, it knocks off all your items, it comes in so safely, and it just prevents you from making hazards. You can't status it, you can't do anything to it. And on stall teams, with support from like other allies that can catch up its weaknesses, it's nails on a chalkboard fighting this stupid thing. It's a shame because I love the visual design of it. It might be my favorite Mega visually. I love holding Big Gem is such flavor, and I love it even more because the Gen 3 beta designs got leaked, and the original Sableye is holding like a piece of glass and looking through it, and then they reused that but with a big gemstone, which I love. I mean, what does the gem do? What is the power? Is that what's bouncing things back? Probably. He's bouncing things back with the gem. That's probably true. Yeah, banned in Gen 6, allowed in Gen 7, but it's maybe my least favorite Pokemon to fight in all of Gen 7 OU. A truly frustrating Pokemon, but you can't deny how powerful this is. You can't. It's an incredible Pokemon. Up next is Mega Mawile. This is a crazy Pokemon, and it's one of the most significant improvements from its base form. Has the same typing of Steel Fairy, but gains the ability Huge Power, which is a crazy ability, doubling your attack, and with a really high base attack to get doubled of 105, this thing can achieve incredible damage output. Steel Fairy is such a good defensive and offensive type combination, so many immunities, resistances, everything. Intimidate is such a good ability to have pre-Mega Evolve, lowering their attack. Then you Mega Evolve and gain Huge Power. It's like two abilities for one. It's so good. It's so strong. And your extra stats are also well distributed. Mawile has low base stats, so you're not that impressive stats-wise for a Mega. But with the high defense and, you know, Intimidate pre-Mega Evolution, as well as, you know, some AVs for some extra bulk and the typing doing a lot of heavy lifting, this ends up being a very functional and effective Pokemon with plenty of opportunity to hit the field, Swords Dance up, Mega Evolve, and start destroying everything. And the real kicker is that it gets Sucker Punch for priority, which is so good on such a slow yet threatening Pokemon. I mean, you've got it all. Knock off, Play Rough for stab. Incredibly powerful, banned in Generation 6 OU, and a relevant force in the Gen 7 OU format as well. One of the strongest Megas in the game is Mega Mawile, who knew? Up next is Mega Metagross. This is a fantastic one. In its base form, it's got the ability Clear Body, which is actually pretty useful, prevents it from getting intimidated on switch in and stuff, and getting stats lowered by like Sticky Web and other such things as it's entering the field, because it grants immunity to stat stage changes. But when it Mega Evolves, it gets Tough Claws for that blanket boost to physical attacks, which is such a good ability. And the stats are incredible. Metagross has a fantastic base stat total to work with, and it's so well-rounded. 145 attack is massive. You're so fast for how bulky and strong you are. Such high defense, and the psychic typing isn't even that bad because you aren't taking much from knockoff, especially with this defense stat, because knockoff cannot knock off a Mega Stone and therefore does less damage. The thing is that in Gen 6, Mega Forms work differently. When you Mega Evolve, you don't actually receive the Mega Form's speed stat on the turn that you Mega Evolve. Instead, you have your base form speed stat for the first turn, and then from then on, you have the Mega Form speed stat. But in Gen 7, this was significantly buffed by the new Mega system, where you do gain the Mega Form speed stats upon Mega Evolving immediately. So for that reason, in Gen 7, Mega Metagross is ranked Ubers. In Gen 6, it is allowed, but it is also just incredibly central and powerful in that format. So this is one of the strongest Mega Forms as well. Banned in Generation 7. Even has priority, which is just so good. Incredibly good Pokemon. Mega Kangaskhan is the first Pokemon so far to be banned in both Gen 6 and 7. And it's a pretty fun one. Mega Kangaskhan is literally the same exact Pokemon, except the child comes out of the pouch and fights alongside the mother. And I honestly think that's great. I love this one. It's got way higher stats, of course, 125 attack, but then this isn't all, because it has the Parental Bond ability. Parental Bond is a crazy ability that allows you to use move twice, because you got the child. The child has a parental bond with the mother, and thus it also uses the same move the mother uses. You get 2 attacks. The second attack is halved in damage, but that's still a significant amount of bonus damage. Power Up Punch can be abused with this to proc the attack raise chance twice, and generally you just have way higher damage on all of your attacks. Power Up Punch is the most noteworthy synergy, but there's also Seismic Toss, which deals damage equal to your level, so it'll just do 100 damage flat twice, because the damage can't be halved if it's based on the level. So you do 200 damage with Seismic Toss flat. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty damn good. And that can, KO things coming in. Defensive Pokemon coming in can just get... Do they have 400 HP? They better, or they're gonna fall to 2 double Seismic Tosses, aren't they? That's something. And I mean, even Crunch has 2 chances to lower defense. All your moves just hit twice and have double the chance to do the thing. And evidently that's an inherently powerful idea that was banned twice over. So there you go. Up next is Mega Blaziken. And this one's funny because base form Blaziken was already a banned Pokemon in Generation 5 ever since it got Speed Boost, which made it really broken. Because you just gain speed passively, your swords dance up and you destroy everything with a powerful sweep. But that's banned in Gen 5, and it's banned in Gen 6 and 7, the base form. And Mega Blaziken is the same Pokemon but with more stats, so you can imagine that this is also just banned for the same reason, but times 2, because it has 160 attack and actual bulk, and even some special attack for the road. Not much to say about this one, it's just, what if a banned Pokemon was even stronger? And then here you have it. Visual design, not terrible. I do prefer base Blaziken, but I think it's okay. I like the little fiery bands he's got on him, and the interesting hairstyle is certainly unique. Up next is Mega Mewtwo X, the physical variant of Mega Mewtwo. It gains a Psychic Fighting typing when it Mega Evolves, and the unexciting ability Steadfast, which is just, I think, if you get flinched, you get bonus speed. That's not really anything. But I mean, the stats though? This thing is incredible. 190 base attack is monstrous, and all of the rest of your stats are of course outstanding. This thing hits incredibly hard. However, it's not actually a fantastic fit in the Gen 6 and 7 metagames. With Xerneas and Yveltal present, who can both threaten you with lethal force. Xerneas has fairy type attacks to hit you. You can't hit them very much. You do have like Poison Jab, but you got a bit of 4 move slot syndrome. If you're running Poison Jab, then you don't have Earthquake to hit Groudon Primal. If you're running Poison Jab in place of Stone Edge, you can't hit Ho-Oh very well, or other flying types like Mega Salamence or whatever else. So, bit of 4 move slot syndrome with this Pokemon. Has trouble and is threatened by common things. Can definitely work though. It's, I think, B- tier, which is a viable Pokemon. But believe it or not, there are more powerful Megas than this. Even though this looks like the most powerful thing in the known universe, there it gets more powerful than this. Of the two Mega Mewtwo's, Mega Mewtwo Y is probably the superior one. It's a simple mono psychic type, it doesn't change type. It gets the ability Insomnia after Mega Evolving, also kind of unexciting, but it at least has an effect, granting sleep immunity, that's useful. And this one is more special attack leaning, with 194 special attack, and even higher speed stat of base 140, and that's really significant right there. That's a big deal. Great special defense, even has a pretty massive attack stat. Doesn't really come up to all that often, but it does have it. And it has the stab size strike. It has Calm Mind. A plethora of coverage. I mean, Mewtwo in its base form is known as a special attacker. It makes sense that the more specially leaning Mega form would have more options to choose from and be a little bit more effective, especially because it's faster. I mean, with your coverage, and even Tapu Lele for support, Psychic Terrain in Gen 7 Ubers can be a viable team archetype with Mega Mewtwo Y on it for the psychic damage and priority immunity that it provides. That being said, Mega Mewtwo Y, although it's widely threatening to a large portion of the metagame, can be walled by certain things. You can't quite one-hit Groudon Primal, and you can't hit them super effectively with anything, so they can take a hit and then KO you back pretty easily. That's a big thing for Mega Mewtwo Y teams. You gotta chip the Primal Groudon down, especially if they're a bulky one. They can be difficult to break through. Also, Yveltal being everywhere is not great for you. At least you have Ice Beam to hit them, but clicking Side Strike can be dangerous. You're inviting in a Yveltal and they can recover momentum if they get in. They're threatening you with Sucker Punch, or they could just knock off a switch out, or U-turn, or pivot, or Oblivion Wing, whatever. So that's a little rough. And just mono Psychic typing, you don't have the best entry points. You probably need support from pivots. It's hard to hit the field, and even though you're incredibly powerful, you got all this coverage, there's a lot of stuff that you don't quite one hit and you might get KO'd back, especially if you're trying to hit the field against something. So you do have good special defense though. You can hit the field against like certain special attackers, but even they often have coverage to hit you. So that being said, that's not to detract from how good Mega Mewtwo Y is. It's a good Pokemon that you can definitely use in Ubis, but there is better. We can do better than this. Believe it or not, folks, Mega Lucario actually outranks both of the Mega Mewtwo's, and it may not look like it at first glance. I mean, this is an incredibly powerful Pokemon. It has a Fighting Steel type. It gains adaptability when it Mega Evolves, which is truly amazing, granting extra stab damage. And its stats are fantastic too. 145 attack and special attack. And a pretty good speed as well, for considering how hard you hit. But we just saw Mega Mewtwo's stats. Both forms have stats through the roof. Why would this be better? Well, Mega Lucario is a better fit in both Gen 6 and 7 Ubers, I think. Because of the typing, partially. Fighting Steel, you are neutral to Fairy. You also resist Dark. And crucially, you have the Stab Meteor Mash that can destroy Xerneas. And the Stab Bullet Punch that can KO a boosted up Xerneas if they're a little bit chipped. You happen to have base 112 speed. A lot of stuff in Ubers is base 90 and 100, so you do outrun a lot of stuff and hit them with just a huge adaptability close combat. If Primal Groudon's a little bit chipped, you can just destroy them with a big close combat. Really, I think it's the access to priority bullet punch that makes this so effective as well. It's so useful against Xerneas and like anything faster than you that's frail. You can hit them with the bullet punch, finish off a lot of things, maybe a Necrozma Ultra or something like that. Even Justified sometimes comes up, the ability that base Lucario has, because you can come in on an Yveltal knockoff. You take and reduce damage because you get the Lucario Knight on, and you get an attack boost because you got hit by a Dark move, and then you're pretty threatening right there. I mean, think of Mega Mewtwo X as a little bit more threatened by the Yveltal Sucker Punch, but you are not as threatened by that. And in fact, they're scared of you. So Mega Lucario actually pretty damn high on the Gen 6 and 7 Ubers viability rankings. I used it back when I was into Gen 7 Ubers, and I found that very good. And yeah, it's surprising to see Lucario. You wouldn't think we're having one of the strongest Megas, but it does, folks. It does. It's a great Pokemon. But believe it or not, the power level increases. Mega Salamence is up next, and it's even better than Mega Lucario and the Mega Mewtwo's. When I was into Gen 7 Ubers, I think this is probably the most commonly seen Mega on ladder, actually. Not a legendary, but a pseudo-legendary with a Mega form, and this is a truly amazing Pokemon. Has Intimidate in the base form, which we know is a recipe for success. Every Mega Evolution that has that is pretty good, I think. Lowers attack on switch in, so you get a little bit of a bonus ability before you do Mega Evolve, and your Mega Evolution ability is Aerolate, the same ability Mega Pinsir has, converting normal type attacks into flying type attacks and enhancing their damage. And Mega Salamence can seriously take advantage of this, and in fact, it kind of makes Salamence insane. Think of base form Salamence, there's no great flying type stab options on it, but what if you gave it stab, flying type double edge, or return? All of a sudden, this thing is a monster, and the stats are nothing to sneeze at either. In fact, they are outstanding. 145 attack, 130 defense, 120 speed is very good as well. Even special attack for the road, for whoever listens. And it's an effective sweeper as well because it has some anti-status technology with access to refresh. You can get rid of burns or toxics and heal back up. Passive teams that rely on status to deal with boost sweepers will be a little bit destroyed by that. You also got Earthquake. I mean, this, after a Dragon Dance, flying and ground as a combo hit a lot of stuff. On top of that, you got Roost for healing. You got Defog. Some sets even run Facade. They just get burned or toxic, and you can just hit really hard through with Facade anyway. Just an incredibly powerful ability. A good fit in the tier. You got immunity to ground type attacks from Groudon Primal. And you're immune to their fire type attacks. Actually matches up pretty decently into Groudon Primal. They can have rock moves and HP Ice and stuff, but you're good against a lot that they can do. You threaten them quite a bit, and if they're chipped over the course of a game, a Mega Salamence sweep can just go to the moon. And I can't stress enough how good flying is as a neutral attacking type. It hits so much. All the random dragon types, you know, there's like Yveltal, Xerneas. Pretty much everything in Ubers is just getting smacked by big flying type moves. So such a good ability for this Pokemon. And one of the most solid and consistent Mega Forms seen all the time in both Gen 6 and 7 Ubers, folks. But there is an even better one, actually. Well, this one's a bit dubious. Between Mega Salamence and Mega Gengar, it's actually very close. But I would put Mega Gengar a little bit higher. Mega Gengar is truly amazing. Same typing as base form Gengar, but much better stats. Very min-maxed and well-distributed stats for this Pokemon. 170 special attack, really high speed too. Doesn't need much bulk when you have stats like this, but it's really the ability that makes this so powerful. Shadow Tag, the most infamous ability in all of competitive singles. It simply traps the enemy with you. They cannot switch out. And, you know, previously Shadow Tag Pokemon were like Wobbuffet, who, yeah, it can Encore you and Mirror Coat you and eliminate something. Even that was too powerful. And that, you know, that can do that once or twice, maybe. And then it gets eliminated. You know, it's not fast. It's limited in what it can do. And then there's Gothitelle, who is pretty weak, Mono-Psychic. It has Shadow Tag, it's broken, but, you know, what can it do? It just Carmines up and rests. A lot can threaten it. So if those were ban-worthy, look at Mega Gengar. This is a trapper that can actually hit you and kill you. This is a trapper that can like defeat like Kyogre with Thunder. You trap Kyogre Primal and just destroy them. Goodbye, Kyogre. A trapper that's this powerful is crazy. Xerneas gets Sludge Waved, you can Icy Wind, Mega Salamence. And it's not like Arena Trap where flying types can switch out. You can just one-shot so many things in Ubers. And if you can't quite one-shot them, you can bring them low enough to get chipped off later. It's just an absurd idea that a Shadow Tag Pokemon can be this powerful. I mean, even if it didn't have Shadow Tag, this would be a crazy Pokemon with any other half-decent ability. But the fact that it's Shadow Tag is unreal, and this can often get multiple trap KOs in a game and enable teammates in ways that scarcely any other Pokemon can. It's a crazy Pokemon through and through, and I think it is the most powerful Mega Form in the game, except for one obvious Titan above all of the rest that I'm sure you all knew was number one. And that is, of course, Mega Rayquaza. This one shouldn't even count, to be honest. It kind of defies the whole Mega mechanic with a significant difference between it and every other Mega Form. But I mean, look at this thing. It's Rayquaza, but it has this ability that creates heavy winds on the field or whatever, blistering winds, Mama Liz's chili oil. And once it does, it bypasses all other weather effects, cancels them out, and also removes your weaknesses from flying type, so you're no longer weak to rock moves or ice moves. And the stats are just beyond anything. 180 attack, 180 special attack, 115 speed. Mixed coverage, you know, special attacks, physical attacks. This attack here, we know how powerful flying is as an offensive type, but you got this move, just casual flying type, close combat. You have extreme sphere priority, why not? V-Create, I mean, the 180 power fire type coverage, why not? Steel type comes in, oh sorry, I have a 180 power attack to defeat you in a single swoop. It's got all the options it could want in the universe. Draco Meteor, why not? And for some reason, Mega Rayquaza does not need a Mega Stone to Mega Evolve like all of these other ones. We've talked about how big of a commitment the Mega Stone is, but Mega Rayquaza can just run an item, so you can just chuck a Life Orb on it, or a Lumberry, or a whatever you want, really. Choice Band, Choice Specs, Expert Belt, just name an item. It's probably great. And all you need to Mega Evolve is actually the move Dragon Ascent. If you have Dragon Ascent, you can just evolve from Rayquaza into Mega Rayquaza without even needing a stone to do so. And obviously that's overpowered. This is the strongest Pokemon in human history, and it's the best Mega Evolution. It barely even, I don't even think this should count. It's like not even a Mega, because it has an item. It's not fair. They went too far. So if you don't count this, I would probably put Mega Gengar at the very top. But this has Mega in its name, so it counts in a literal sense. But cosmically, it doesn't count, I think. What do you think, folks? Who's your favorite Mega form in the game? Mine is Mega Gyarados. I love Mega Gyarados. But what about you? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you for watching.